In the mid-20s of the last century, neither Mary Pickford nor Greta Garbo had such fame as Clara Bow. The era of cinema was divided into pre-Bow and post-Bow. When 17-year-old Clara Bow appeared before the head of Paramount Studios, Ben Schulberg, in 1923, he decided that he was being bullied. In front of him stood a skinny, stocky girl in a faded cotton dress with a shock of brown hair and anxious dark eyes. She was chewing gum, looking at her worn-out shoes. He liked Bow in some low-budget New York movie, but how do you make a star out of this girl? Spit out the gum, the producer barked. We're going to give you a tryout right now, or you're going back to your village. Laugh, Schulberg ordered. The girl threw back her face and burst into a cheerful, infectious laugh. Joy and amusement shone in her eyes, which had been prickly and incredulous a moment ago. Cry, the producer ordered, and Clara immediately began to cry. Streams of real tears gushed out. Schulberg looked at Clara curiously. You're just an emotion-producing machine. As a result, she was assigned a small role in the film May Days and was given a tiny salary for an actress, $50 a week. Clara thought that Schulberg had made her happy, but she made him happy. In 5 years, he shot Bow in 25 films. She began to bring the Paramount Film Company revenues growing exponentially. But the studio turned her into a slave, disenfranchised, unquestioning, and wordless. In the first 3 years, she was given only 1 day off. Wordless in both the literal and figurative sense of the word. The movie was silent. In her entire film career, Clara has never traveled outside of California. The actress was filmed in the morning in one picture, in the evening in another, sometimes at night in the third. No one cared if the girl had time to rest as she slept. Clara had the role of a simple-minded provincial beauty who turns men's heads with her charms. Her hair was dyed a fiery red, her eyebrows were painted with a house, and her lips were painted with a crimson heart. And voila, the star has lit up. How envious other actresses were of her. Catherine MacDonald, Gloria Swanson, all those whom Clara pushed from the first takes. They were ready to grab her red hair. Of course, this upstart graduated from 7th grade in Brooklyn, and she wasn't ashamed to admit it. Bow pronounced all the phrases through her nose, nasal, swallowed the endings. The perfumed beau monde of those times did not accept the Brooklyn girl, and Clara began to emphasize that she came from the street and was not going to change. Francis Scott Fitzgerald himself, after seeing Clara in the film, this girl, called her the first sex symbol of the nation. But she didn't feel like a star. On the contrary, she believed that she owed everyone and was to blame for everyone. One day, Clara was attacked by a crowd of enthusiastic fans at a restaurant. She ended up signing photos and signing autographs for 3 hours, and then, seeing that people were not leaving, she took out her wallet and began handing out money. She was given a dressing down at the studio. Clarina's absolute reliability was mistaken for hypocrisy. If someone from the studio remembered that it was necessary to feed his cat, then Clara, if she had a break from filming, could rush far away. And how she dressed! Clara combined pink with green and a cage with a stripe. She could come to the reception in sandals on bare feet and to the picnic in high-heeled shoes. When she snatched a decent jackpot for this girl, everyone expected that the baby would buy a $1 million mansion with a swimming pool somewhere in Malibu. The rich and famous have just begun to settle there. However, the hillbilly distinguished himself here too. She bought a modest 7-room bungalow for an obscenely low cost of $15,000. Her mansion became a laughingstock for Hollywood. Plush furniture was combined with oriental tea tables and mahogany sideboards with simple wooden chests of drawers. Hollywood couldn't forget Bow's housewarming party. She sent out invitations written by hand in a child's handwriting on colored pieces of paper bought at a cheap stationery store. Clara called 100 people to her. The first embarrassment happened when actress Catherine MacDonald, correcting her hairstyle in the hallway, ran into her hairdresser and shied away from her, later telling Clara somewhere in the corner that she did not know how to grade society. Clara still didn't understand what Catherine was talking about. Ben Schulberg sat next to his chauffeur at the table and took his leave on the first pretext. Many did the same. For dinner, pasta was served, cooked personally by Clara's dad. This was the first and last time that colleagues accepted Clarina's invitation. When the studio started celebrating Christmas, the simple-minded and kind Clara came with a bag of gifts for everyone, including cleaners and electricians. Despite the fact that Clara was all kind of ridiculous, she had a stormy personal life. She did not consider it necessary to hide from her colleagues who was caring for her and who she was with now. Don't they know that? At first, it was the then popular handsome Mexican Gilbert Roland, her partner in many films. For an affair with Gary Cooper, almost all the Paramount actresses were ready to scratch out her eyes. Cooper was from Montana and rode so beautifully in the saddle that women's hearts skipped a beat. Cooper was handsome, tall, dark blonde, blue-eyed. Was it Clara's fault when 21-year-old Cooper confessed his love to her after filming? Despite the stellar romances, Clara was not happy. If Gary went away for a couple of days, she couldn't find her place. She was afraid that he would leave her. One day, Cooper was away for more than 2 weeks, and Clara managed to get engaged to director Victor Fleming, who was twice her age. Cooper returned and demanded an explanation. Clara said, "That's right, just in case," and she assured Gary that she was ready to marry him. Bow confessed to her only friend, journalist Adele Rogers, that she felt completely unable to say no to a person she was afraid to offend. In 1929, all Hollywood studios switched to the production of talking movies. For the actors of silent, it was a blow. Everyone was worried Cooper, Richard Allen, Colleen Moore, and Gloria Swanson. Clara Bow was shaking like a starlet. She was sure that someone with an indestructible Brooklyn accent would be rejected first. The test was conducted in a small enclosed room, one-on-one, with sound engineer Mike Tepler, a good-natured-looking fat man. Tepler said that after a trial recording of Bow's voice, he turned on the tape so that she could hear herself. This was the first time Mike had seen such a reaction. At first he froze in shock, then shook and rushed out of the studio as if scalded, as if the voice was chasing her. Mike, waddling and panting, rushed to catch up with the fugitive, shouting after her, "Your voice is not bad. Tree nai rui me." Despite the fact that the voice was recognized as trainable, Clara left the cinema. A few months after Clara made her historic resignation announcement, she met her fate. Rex Bell was in Hollywood by accident. He was a native of Chicago. When his father needed a dry and warm climate for health reasons, the family moved to Beverly Hills. The guy worked part-time delivering correspondence, including delivering letters to the Fox film studio. Seeing a tanned, handsome man with a disarming white-toothed smile, the studio asked what he could do. George Beldam said, "Just ride a horse." He was accepted into the studio and renamed Rex Bell and began playing in westerns. Unexpectedly, Rex was invited to play the main role in the film Loyal to the Fleet, but on one condition. He must persuade the stubborn star of the Paramount studio, Clara Bow, to star. Rex went to Clara's bungalow on Drive Street to get acquainted and persuade. In the garden, a red-haired fat woman was sitting at a table under a spreading tree and devouring pasta with an enviable appetite. She glanced at Rex with an indifferent gaze. He politely asked how to see Miss Bow. Clara answered with her mouth full. He was amazed. There were rumors about Clara that she was burning through life, changing men like gloves and drowning in luxury. He didn't notice any luxury or men. By that time, all her former fans had disappeared. Roland, Cooper, Earl Pearson, and Fleming. Her father lived with Clara. She brought him to her as soon as she settled in Hollywood. The father treated his daughter rudely, but did not hesitate to take money from her and even opened a snack bar, Clara Bow Sandwich, on the corner. The newspapers were covering parties at Clara's house. Then Rex found out that Clara was afraid to stay at home alone and often invited random guests she found in restaurants. She partied with them all night, played bridge, splashed in the pool. Usually the fun ended with the neighbors calling the police. Clara fussed around the guest, began to treat him. The Paramount star turned out to be a simple girl, completely unlike the arrogant actresses. They began an affair. 25-year-old Clara was like a defenseless child, gentle and impressionable. Clara agreed to star in a talking movie just for Rex's sake. She wanted to support him and understood that without her, Rex would simply be thrown out of the picture after the first unsuccessful scene. By the time the film was shot, Clara had lost weight and looked like herself again, naughty, sexy. She asked the director to minimize the dialogue, claiming that she did not like her own voice. Rex saw that it was difficult for Clara to memorize even a small text and felt guilty. This film was smashed to smithereens by critics. Clara's game was called incompetent, strained, and puppet-like, and her intonations were fake. This is undoubtedly the end of Clara Bow in the cinema, wrote the Sunday Times. She was hardly persuaded to star in several more unsuccessful films, which her understudy voiced for her. Clara was desperate. One newspaper published a series of articles entitled Unknown Facts from the Life of Clara Bow, where some dirty gossip and speculation were savored. Rex immediately sued the newspaper on her behalf and won it. After that, Rex Bell quit movies and took Clara away from Hollywood. He bought a ranch in Nevada in the mountains. On December 3, 1931, he married Clara and devoted the first year of marriage to getting her out of depression. He taught Clara how to ride and shoot. Apart from Rex, the dogs, the horses, and one female servant, there was no one at the ranch. Clara, who had undergone a small operation on the female side for several years, no longer hoped to become a mother. Bow and Bell had a son, Tony, in 1934, and a second son, George, in 1938. Clara felt happy and repeated that she would be the perfect mother. And indeed, she herself got up to the children at night, fed them according to science, according to the latest books on healthy eating, played with them, taught them to swim. She constantly needed Rex's presence at home. If he spent time in the city with friends, his wife would meet him all exhausted by the long wait. Belle had offered her many times to go out into society, to visit, to the theater, but for some reason she was terribly afraid of this. Once, when the boys were older, the movie Loyal to the Fleet was shown on TV, starring Rex and Clara. The children stuck to the screen and started calling for their mother. Clara heard her on-screen monologue from the kitchen and stormed into the room, slapping the children hard. After that, she locked herself in her room and took a sedative. They couldn't wake her up in the morning and sent her to the clinic. She was examined by psychiatrists, and Rex, who came to visit his wife, pronounced a verdict. His wife has a progressive mental illness, the one that her mother, grandmother, and 2 maternal aunts had. It turns out that all this time, Clara was paying for the aunt's treatment in special clinics. It seemed to Clara, as soon as she heard herself in the recording or from the TV screen, that she heard her mother's voice. Their voices were very similar. That's why she was so terrified of hearing her voice. After Clara's hospitalization, Rex was left with 2 sons aged 6 and 8. Clara did not return to them. Rex Bell rented a spacious apartment for her in Los Angeles and found a companion who monitored her regime and medication intake. He paid for his wife's treatment in a psychiatric clinic. Rex Bell was elected lieutenant governor of Nevada and died on July 4, 1962. In fact, Clara Bow's only way out was her husband's funeral. Clara outlived him by 3 years and died of a heart attack on September 27, 1965, at the age of 60.